Welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. In today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about your identity as a leader. I hadn't really thought about my identity much over the years until I sat down one day with a client and we started talking through different aspects of our life, and I started to really think about the things that I identify by. What is it? Is it that I'm a daughter or a sister? Am I a leader? I don't know. And so I started to really think about it. And so in today's episode, we're going to be talking about marketing, but marketing is kind of your brand and your identity and who you are and how you're seen by others. Are they in alignment? Are you clear and confident in who you are? And what does that do for your brand? So today's episode is entitled Marketing as Influence, What Your Brand Says About Your Leadership. And I have Tammy Swankowski here today from MarketSpark. And I'm excited to bring her in and chat a little bit about the marketing side, but also about our personal and professional brand and who we are. So thank you for coming and joining today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, and we got to have lunch together first,
Always
so we get
good.
extra time.
I'll try to stay
today.
awake after all the mashed potatoes.
Yeah, we can do an IJ Cans ad.
There you go.
It was delicious. I had chicken piccata, everybody, the usual.
Chicken hazelnut, my favorite.
Her usual. So obviously, I know you much better than they do. Do you mind telling a little bit about your background and kind of what brought you to be the co-owner of MarketSpark?
So I'll try to keep this as brief as I possibly can because it spans a few years, but I'm from a very entrepreneurial family. My dad has owned, and my mom as well, men's and ladies' clothing stores for many years, along with other businesses. So I've always had this very, can-do attitude. When I graduated from college, I went to the University of Virginia and majored in rhetoric and communication studies, which no longer exists as a major, but I would like to think it's still important.
I would say so.
Yes. Then the focus there is less vocational. I didn't learn how to write ads or do the creative type of work.
Okay.
It was more about thinking how things that you do influence people, going back to the ancient whoever's. But anyway, it was a great time. After I got out of college, I went into the kind of corporate world in personnel for a large hotel chain. And after about 4 months, my dad said, there's a gentleman in town in Leesburg who's selling his business, and you should talk to him. So here I am, newly married, out of college, and I go talk to this man who is selling his 2 publications, a monthly newspaper and a quarterly handbook. I honestly knew nothing about either one, but I'm like, I want to do this.
Oh, wow.
I got the loan for the deposit, etc. So I ran my own, wrote the articles, sold the ads, had someone that designed the paper, and so forth. For a number of years, then I sold that and ended up going into retail. My family background, I worked for Talbot's and for Nordstrom. And then I was commuting from Purcellville to Tyson's at that time, which was a no-brainer back that many years ago. But I was like, I want to do something different. And on a whim, I called up WINC Radio, 92.5 Wink FM. They were hiring for the first time in many years, and I ended up working there for 17 years and developed a lot of the area over the mountain, as they say, in the Loudoun County area. It was a wonderful, wonderful career. But then, as all good things do, the company was sold, radio changed, and I had an opportunity to go work for another company that 2 guys I went to high school with. It was called Cinevista. And trying to make this shorter instead of longer, the one partner and myself now have owned the business for the last 7 years. We're MarketSpark, and it's just been all of the things that I've done over time have fed into each other. And because I've been in retail, my parents have owned retail businesses. They own an ice cream shop. They've owned, so I feel like I can relate to the things that my clients are going through, and I put myself in their situation, or I've been in their situation. So that is a little bit about my path.
What a cool journey. I love that. Every time I talk to you, I learn a little bit more about you. So I learned some new things there as well. So thinking about what makes MarketSpark different, Can you share a little bit about the mission and what you guys are doing through your business, a little bit about the services you provide so
Sure.
people can have some context for some of our future conversations?
Absolutely. So we are primarily a digital marketing agency. We will do the traditional marketing. By that, I mean print, brochures, things like that, but that is not the focus. We do very little of that because the effectiveness and the affordability is in the digital tools. You know, that thing in the palm of your hand that you can't stop looking at all hours. You know, it drives so much. We're very, very relationship oriented, and that is our focus, is trying to figure out, what do you want to achieve? What is your goal? Who is your best customer or patient or client, depending on the business segment? And then how do we get the right message in front of them so they take action?
Yeah.
And we're all about getting the right client. It is not about how many clicks. It's not about how many phone calls. It's about how much money you make. You know, what comes in your door that resonates. So we really look at that, and we partner with each client. We're your people. That's kind of what my partner and I say all the time. We want to be the go-to, and that's how we've developed our business over the last really 15 years, because we've been MarketSpark for 7. But the retention of our clients is tremendous. There's a lot of trust there that works both ways. And we're very diligent about exploring new things as they come along, but we do not jump on the bandwagon. We, like the tried and true and proven. And I think one of the biggest things is we are in business too, and we are in the community with most of our clients. So we want to be able to see you in the grocery store, or you talk to another client and you're both getting the same kind of service, and we're doing the best for you. And the whole key is we want you to make more money than you're paying us. So,
I can imagine that it's changed a lot over the years, what marketing looks like and the type of service you're providing. So how has that changed in the last 7 to 15 years for you?
It is option overload for people. Not as much for us, because we have a more refined view of what we know works, because budgets are not unlimited. You cannot do it all, and you need to do what you do well. It's better to convince 20% of the people 100% of the way than to try to do everything and you convince 100% of the people 20% of the way. You want results. And so we look at what someone wants to achieve, what their budget is, and then design something for them appropriately. And you have to have some stick-to-itiveness, because if you're, as my dad would say, spit on a griddle, and you're just jumping from one thing to the next, you're never going to see anything work. So we really hold the hand, guide people. And I have to say, we're very fortunate. Most of our clients just let us do what we do. That's the ideal client for us. You go do what you do best. Let us do what we do best, and that's kind of a perfect synergy. But yeah, there are just so many options, and it's very challenging for someone to navigate that on their own. And most people waste more money trying to do Google ads on their own, for example, than paying someone like us to do it, because it's very overwhelming.
So you want someone experienced doing that. It's like what you and I were talking about as we were going into the restaurant with decision fatigue. Right. I don't want to have to make all the decisions as to where my marketing dollars are going. I'd rather say, here's the budget and what's the best place to spend my money, and hand that to someone else to do.
And the other thing is, we've done this long enough that we know certain things are cyclical. Let's say medical, maybe, for example, in the summer it can drop off a bit. People aren't as sick. They're on vacation. They're not paying attention to their wellness as much. Different things like that we can navigate through and adjust appropriately. And somebody doing it on their own, they're like, they'll panic. I mean, sometimes I feel like a therapist, which is okay.
Don't we all?
So,
well, thanks for sharing that. Back in season 1 of this podcast, I would ask every single guest when they first saw themselves as a leader. And I kind of got away from it for a while, but I'm going to ask you that. I'm just curious, in thinking about your leadership journey, when did you first look at yourself and say, I think I'm leading?
Well, there are a couple of different segments of my life. And in one way, I would say as soon as my younger sister was born, I felt that I was the leader, because I'm the oldest of 3 girls. And so I do do feel like I'm the boss of them. So there
Wait, leader or boss, Tammy?
There is that. Oh, leader. So there is that. Actually, though, it's funny because I can't remember if I shared this with you, but I would see things about leadership and conferences and things, and I'm like, I'm not really a leader because I don't have a big staff. My partner and I are so hands-on, which is one of the other differences about us, is how much we handle directly for our clients. And we have some great contractors, but it's not the same as an employee that you're managing that way. So I was thinking, I don't really need to go to that. I'm not really a leader, but I have realized that is absolutely not true. And really probably just in the last little bit have I realized that. I definitely feel like I lead my clients. They look to me as a leader. But in terms of leading myself and how I impact others, just if I go to the grocery store and how I interact with somebody, in my family, which is always the hardest because, they get the short end of the stick, of course. I've learned that you should talk to your husband the way you would speak to your best client. And that's a really very interesting thought because it's like, yeah, wow, that's something. And
I'm surprised he's not coming on the intercom right now. This is always his opportunity to jump in and be like, did you hear that,
yours?
Sierra?
I meant mine.
I thought about it. I really did. I was just going to let it play out.
Thanks for that. I brought it on myself.
There you go. Now you're accountable. So I do see myself as a leader in so many different ways than the traditional thought of being a leader.
Yeah.
Just the way you conduct yourself, the way people see you, whether it's your personal brand or how you represent your business.
Yeah.
So
I would have to say, my mindset around leadership kind of followed that same trend, except I was the youngest of three and had two older brothers, so I didn't lead anything in that household.
Right.
So mine didn't start there, but I couldn't wrap my head around being a leader, but not feeling like I had a title that suggested I was a leader. Mm-hmm. And so it's been interesting to kind of explore that over the years. But thinking about your brand, but then your brand, is it based on how other people see you or how you see yourself? Because those might not be one and the same. I talk to people all the time who have some serious blind spots. We all have blind spots, right?
Absolutely.
And so, they're talking about the way they see themselves. We talk in a group setting, people kind of advocating for their needs when it comes to communication. And it just brings awareness to things that they never realized they were doing before. So I'm curious for you, what are 3 words you would use to describe yourself as a leader? And is that any different than 3 words somebody else might use to describe you as a leader?
I think the things that come to mind for me would be energetic, reliable, responsive, and I'm in a mastermind group, and there's 6 of us. We're very honest with each other, and we did an exercise not long ago and gave each other names, and they named me the cheerleader.
Oh, that's so funny.
Because I tend to go in the positive direction and am more about can do instead of cannot.
And you were a cheerleader.
Well, for a year, but as I told you after that, I was like, I would so much rather be on the football team. What the heck? But anyway, so I think it's pretty, my family might feel like my responsiveness or my energy goes in the wrong direction for them sometimes, because you just, like I said, you act differently at home to a point, but I think it's pretty similar personally and business wise. So.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. Often when I look at people's DISC assessment results, there's their natural style and then their adapted style, and we see some differences between the two.
Right.
So it's always interesting to see how much that shift occurs. When I took my very first DISC assessment, I was a flat line. And what that meant to me was I'm a social chameleon, and I was always just becoming who I needed to be for the people around me.
Right.
And I wasn't 100% sure what my real personality was because I was just so used to, you know what I mean? Being whatever for somebody else. So it's been interesting to see that over the years and it shift. And then on paper, on a graph, I can say, oh, I have an actual personality now.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, I would say if you would have asked different people about my personality and how they would have described me, they probably would have said different things back then. But I would like to think it's consistent now.
I'm sure
certainly
it is.
Hope so.
Absolutely.
So after someone walks away from an interaction with you, you talked about even in the grocery store, right? What do you want them to walk away with? How do you want them to feel after an interaction with you?
Well, if I'm thinking about my clients, I want them to feel energized and empowered. I want them to feel excited about the opportunities that I've presented for them that help elevate their business and ultimately their life, because there are tools that we can help them implement, or that we do it for them, that can be a game changer. So generally speaking, I want people to feel energized and, see the positive energy I have in whatever I'm doing. And I really try to move in that direction and not let the other come in, because it makes a difference.
It does. I feel like that enthusiasm that you're talking about seems to always shine through when somebody finds their calling, their thing, right? I've met a lot of people that, they just don't seem excited about what they're doing. You can tell the passion isn't there, and you shift them into a role that's a better fit, and that personality you're talking about comes out.
Yes. So reminds me of a story, not to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
My husband and I were on our honeymoon, and we went to Nova Scotia, and we were at the airport in Toronto. And this was almost 40 years ago now. We'll be celebrating 40 years next June.
Congrats.
Yeah, he's a saint. Anyway.
At least you're honest.
We were getting something to eat in like the little cafeteria there, and there were these two guys that worked there. We call them the Toronto chefs, because they had on the chef's hat and the whatever, and they were working just in a pretty basic. Their attitudes were so amazing. Their jobs were pretty, I won't say menial, but and it wasn't like a Michelin, restaurant, and they just made our day. And so to this day, we still talk about the Toronto chefs. It's just you can take whatever you're doing and put whatever mindset you want to it. And they could have just been like what you often see in a situation like that, and it would be, whatever, there's your food. But it just was a powerful thing all those years ago.
I was going to say, it stuck with you for 40
all
years.
All those years. So that's the kind of impact that anybody can have. And
When people share stuff like that with me, I can't help but think how powerful it would be to find those people and tell them that you've remembered them 40 years later. And you're talking about them on a podcast episode.
Yes, I'm sure they're listening. So if it was around June 1st, 1986.
That is so funny. I love it. Well, I hope everybody finds that passion at some point and could use those same words to describe them. Now, thinking about your co-owner of this business and the personalities and how they come together, I don't know a lot about the co-owner on the other side. Can you tell me a little bit about his personality and how it kind of comes together for the client?
We're the odd couple. It's great. Actually, his name's Mike, and he went to high school. He's 2 years younger, or I should say 2 classes behind me. I was in my sister's class. I did not know him in high school. Met him when I, through the other partner, came to work at the company. Anyway, over the course of time, he's much more analytical, but it's a great business match, because what I love to handle, he doesn't. What he handles, I don't. And we work very well together. It's kind of funny because I had some client, it's a long story and I'll make it really short, who could be very kind of like, very questioning about some of the things and wanted to micromanage everything we did, and is actually someone who is a surgeon. And one day I joked and said, "You give me the scalpel and you can have my laptop," because it was like, anyway. But whenever I needed to kind of level him out, I would say, Mike's going to come with me, because he's a little bit of an intimidating guy, but not to me. So it's been a great partnership, and we work really well together, and we trust each other, and it's been great. Any ideas I have, he's very receptive to. One thing I love about him, he is all about beating Google at their own game and works so hard at that, but he is very diligent and analytical. So many things come down the pike that are like the next best thing, and he doesn't just jump on the bandwagon. And
good.
So it's been a good really good thing.
That's awesome. I find so many times that the partners that I meet that seem to mesh well together are truly the opposites. And we have someone who's like all the personality and creative and innovative, right? And then we have someone who's like very detail oriented, process driven, answers all the questions.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. He does have a good personality though. So
we're not putting down his personality. Well, I'm the one that's process driven, detail oriented, by the way. So be careful what you say, Tammy. So thinking about, you used those words to describe yourself. If we were to talk about the brand of the business and maybe what you value as a brand and what people would say about the business, what would those 3 words be?
I think they're similar, but, I think integrity is huge.
Okay.
And I know it's a word that's tossed around a lot, but I feel like we are absolutely, that is a core principle of our business because we don't, I was thinking about this not long ago. When I think about meeting with somebody or a business that could benefit from us, I don't think of them as a dollar sign. I don't think, what can I get them to spend? I just do not think of it that way. I think, what is their problem and how can I solve it? So I would say, solution-oriented or problem solvers, that's a really big part. And the other is partner. And again, also cliche, but I've become really good friends with many of my clients, and just there's a partnership there, and they rely on us for so many things beyond just the typical things that we do.
Yeah.
So,
Those are great words. And you hear some of them over and over again, but I like that you defined what they meant to you. And I talk about that all the time with core values. I just used it in an example yesterday in a workshop I was doing, and we used the word integrity. And I said, if we went around, each person would define integrity differently. Right. So what does it mean to you? What does it look like in action? So thank you for sharing that. And I can't help but notice how much the business is in alignment with who you are. And that's the idea, right? Your business really is your brand.
Right.
You're the face of the business.
Right.
It's a reflection of you.
Absolutely.
So it makes sense that the values that sit on a business page are the same ones you live out in your personal life too.
Right.
That's what we hope to see.
Right. Well, and even when I didn't own my own business, when I worked for the radio station, I felt like it was my own business. And part of that is because I was commission driven. I mean, so the sales were important, but again, it wasn't all about going out to knock down the next sale. It was the relationships, if you wanted the longevity. And I ended up being, the top biller for, many years when I was there. So, but my approach was I ran it like it was my own business. I cared about it that much.
Yeah.
So.
That's good that you shared that, because you want to make sure that even if you're not running it as if it's your own, that people find their way to a business that has shared values.
Right.
So as soon as you find yourself in a culture where there's, not alignment, that's where you find it becomes kind of toxic. You don't look forward to going to work, and it can take the passion that you have for what you do, right away from you.
Right.
So I spend a lot of time talking about values with my clients, and it's interesting to me how quickly people start to buy more into the mission of the organization once they understand that they're on the same page when it comes to values.
Absolutely.
And it really just kind of changes the level of engagement.
Absolutely, for sure.
So I was thinking about the business owners that you're working with. Is there anything that typically gets in the way of them being clear in their branding, being consistent in their branding? What are the things that kind of get in the way for your clients?
So for the clients that I have that are existing clients, obviously we want to do as much as we can to handle that for them. The biggest thing that gets in the way, and it's a constant thing. If some of my clients hear this, they'll be like, oh, that's me, is getting the assets they need to support their brand. So today with social media and digital marketing, being real and relatable is super important. So having real pictures, real videos, your real showroom, your real, doctors and nurses, whatever the business is. And it's very challenging because they all want this perfect time, to have everyone together or to have everyone. And there is no perfect time. So that is one of the biggest challenges that would help further a brand and the marketing if they had those in place. Because I have one client, They are owned by they have multiple owners. The picture they were using, which we don't use, it was over 20 some years old. And I'm like, you don't look like that anymore. I know you think you do. So we're just not going to use it until you get a new one. But
is so
that
funny.
is probably the biggest thing for the clients I have now. Somebody that I'm starting to work with in general, like if they haven't had anybody helping them to this point, one of the biggest problems I think they have is they have an idea. I've got a great idea. And they go down the pike so fast without thinking through things. And then they get to the point where they realize they've made a mistake and it's hard to undo and whatnot. So kind of depends on the life cycle of when we're working with them.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, so in comparison, how often is it someone just getting started in business and you're helping with their initial branding versus people who are in mature businesses where they maybe need a rebrand?
It's both. Often people will come to us after they've done a little bit of the work. My best friend did my logo. It's like, oh my goodness. And, I got this URL and here's the name I came up with. If someone would come to us before that, and we've definitely had that, and that's the best scenario when we can guide them through that whole process. But that's challenging when they've done part of it. And then, consistency and longevity is key. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater if they are, have been in business for a while, but you need to keep up with the times. There's some very successful businesses. Their websites are very outdated or they barely have one. So it's a real variety of things. And we approach each one very individually because it's very emotional. It is literally their baby or, their daughter or their wife or whoever helped do this, and there's always some of that resistance. So we tread lightly, but we're very direct. And as I tell many of my clients, this is what we think. At the end of the day, it's your business and your decision, but this is what we advise. And, I always say it's not like the therapist who just wants you to sit there and talk and says, well, what do you think about that? What do you think about it? We tell them what we think about that. And then, again, it's up to them to decide to go in that direction. So.
Well, I remember when I had just started my business and reached out to someone to help with the branding. And I had to fill out like a branding questionnaire. And the questions that were being asked, I had no idea. Like, what adjectives do you feel describe your brand or your business? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm still making this thing up. But a lot of it had to do with my brand and my identity. And I wasn't even sure what that was yet. So can you help me to understand your process and like the types of questions you might ask someone to help them figure out who they are and what they stand for?
Right. So we do most of the heavy lifting, which is one of the things that I think is a great claim to fame for us. So when I meet with someone, I want to know what their goals are. Where do you see yourself in 3 years or in 1 year? And what is your key focus? Where do you make the most money? What is your ideal client or patient or, whatever the case may be? Those are the kind of things I ask them. I don't ask them what their favorite colors are. I don't ask them what their favorite animal is or their, what. That is our job to come up with those things.
Oh, interesting.
So we are much more about where they want to go and what their goals are. What problem are you solving? Who do you think your ideal target audience is? And it's very interesting. Sometimes they're pretty good with it, and sometimes they're, I have to say, okay, let's think about this for a minute. Do you really think? So that is more the approach I have when I meet with a new business. And if it's a brand new business, then it's a really, versus a business that's been around for a bit. But there's so much that's changing, so many things that used to be relevant that aren't. So businesses need to adapt if they want to stay, and so much more competition. I mean, we work with a lot of dentists, for example. The number of dental practices in any area, I mean, I live in Purcellville, which is rather tiny it's gotten bigger. The number of dentists, it's dentists and pizza places. I mean, Winchester. Anyway, so trying to help them stand out. What sets you apart? What is it that, if you had to describe why you? So those are the kind of things that we're asking.
Okay.
And then we distill all of that and come back to them with the logo design or the name of a business. A real quick example, I had a pediatric dental client. She was starting from scratch. She was found us. She was actually in Ohio, and she was going to name her business Tiny Teeth. And I was like, okay, so keep in mind that the person with the tiny teeth is never looking at a website, never going to make a decision about where they're going to see the dentist. You're really appealing to the parent. And when that kid is 8 years old or 10, they're going to think tiny teeth is an insult.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we worked with her and came up with it. Her business is Noble Pediatric Dental. It's got a really cool lion that doesn't look too juvenile. It's anyway.
That's cool.
Well, the branding has really worked well for her. But that's an example of, you think you're dealing with little kids, and you should name it appropriately. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, no, I've always struggled with that because I knew nothing about where I was headed. Like, I don't even know how much you remember of my story, but I was like coming off of bed rest, starting a business, did never plan on being a business owner, and I'm supposed to start by creating a name.
Right.
And I remember that being so hard. And I know my name is too long. It doesn't tell people what I do. Like, there's so many flaws with the name that I chose for my business. But I've been leading it that way for 5 years,
Right.
and people have finally like caught on
Right.
and remember SLC even
Right.
without the long name. So it's like, well, do I go through a rebrand? Because that's who I was, and I'm still the same person.
Right.
So I always
Right.
go back and forth because I know better now than I did then. But I don't know what to do about it. But it's true, because even like learnership, people say leadership. And I specifically chose learnership and coined that term
Right.
because it's the combo of lifelong learning and leadership skills.
Makes them
right?
think for a minute. Makes them
makes them
stand
pause.
out. Yeah.
But it's really long. And Sierra is obviously my name. But collaborative was the way in which I wanted to work with others. And,
Right.
you know, it made sense to me, but it doesn't make sense to other people necessarily. So I struggled with that so much. And I still don't know what to do about it.
But sometimes there is no perfect name that's going to describe everything.
Yeah.
I mean, rarely, unless it's something very obvious, like a pizza shop, it needs explanation. And it's usually going to be in conjunction with something else that is going to give them more information. You, or even your business card or your website.
Yeah.
So, it's easy to pronounce. People know what it means when they think about it. So,
it's true.
You've made it work.
Well, it's funny because when I think about the words associated with me, everybody knows my obsession is growth. Like growth and intentionality. And so people know my tree. You said something about my necklace today how I might have been wearing it the last time you saw me. Who knows? Because I'm always wearing a tree necklace, and I always have something on that says grow or growth or whatever it may be. So maybe it's that people connect with, and they see that and think growth when they see my tree.
Right. Right.
But anyway, I think this journey has been interesting myself, and trying to figure out who I am, what do I want my business to be and represent. But being clear and confident in that, and not adapting to what other people want it to be, is also a challenge.
Right. Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, that's like if we do come up with a name study and come up with a bunch of different names for a business or logo or whatever. It's when people start showing it to all of their friends and all of their, it's like, fine, get their opinion. But, or I'll see on social media somebody, hey, we just got this new logo done. What do you think? And it's like, I'm looking at it going, oh my goodness. And the people they're asking, they don't know, and they don't want to hurt their feeling, Anyway, so
I've seen
you
that
ask
many
5
times.
people and you're going to get 7 answers, and one of them might be right. So, yeah.
Well, thinking about all the tools that you have at your fingertips and helping people really get their message out there and their brand out there, how do you go about choosing what tools they should use to match their brand to the solution they're providing?
Right. So again, that depends on their goal. Like, what is it you want to achieve? We work with some, say, medical practices again, or even service industry, roofing or flooring. They're pretty darn busy. And yes, they can take on more business, but only so much. So that is one set of tools and budget. And then somebody who's new and just starting out, they need to ramp it up, and you got to get it going and bring that money in. So it really depends on what their goals are as to what we offer. We're very big about, you live in the real world and you have to be able to pay these bills. So, I've heard stories of other agencies that are, if you don't spend at least, and, we're not like that. We're very much, let's scale this. You can start with this. This is the most, like Google Ads, it's the pay to play, as they say. It does work, as much as I hate to, it works. We've seen it work, and you have to do it properly so that you get qualified leads, and we track those leads. Social media is great, but it all has to be used properly with the right message and the right goal in mind. So that's really, it's not a set answer, because there isn't. We're very customized. Our approach is very customized to our clients.
Well, no matter what it is, I feel like you have to be so intentional about it. If I think about all that I do just for the marketing aspect of my business and how much time and thought it takes, and I'm not an expert in it, right? It's just that I need to.
You're pretty darn good. Oh, yeah, I'd say you've got it going on.
Well, thank you. But to me, I'm trying to push out as much content as possible, because consistency to me is key, right? But then also I'm obsessed with quality and a perfectionist.
Right.
So how do you find the balance between the two?
Yeah.
So I try to be very authentic and admit when I'm not great at something, and this is my best, friends.
Right.
This is what I can do. That authenticity piece, that has to shine through in marketing, right? How do you recommend people use their marketing to be authentically them? Like, for example, you said earlier about someone using a 20-year-old outdated picture of themselves. To me, that's not very authentic.
Nope. Right.
So what does that look like to be truly authentic in your marketing?
Right. So I think being real and relatable is more important than ever, because with social media and, the influencers and everything else that's out there, there's so much transparency. So looking very stock photo and, is not the best way to go. Sometimes it's the only way to go. So how you use that is very important, and what your message is very important. But the flip side of that is, when you do put that marketing out there and someone clicks through on it or calls or comes in, that's where your marketing really also needs to shine through and to be authentic, and make sure you complete the circle, answer the call appropriately, and we end up kind of coaching in that arena as well, because I will say, somebody wants us to handle their marketing. I'll look at their website and say, we'd be thrilled if your website was great, but it's not, and I'm not going to take your money to drive traffic to a website where it's going to fall apart. They're going to look at this beautiful ad or a Google ad, whatever, click through, and they're going to come here and be like, they'll be totally lost. So that's when we'll do a web revamp for you. Same thing with who's answering your phones and how they act, or so there's just a whole big picture that it's all marketing. Anything, how you act on the sidelines at a soccer game for your kid is part of your brand. If you represent your business and you're wearing that hat or whatever, so it all resonates.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And I think about that all the time. And Erica, who was working for me as my director of details, was always saying, when I'm out and about, whether I'm wearing your logo or not, I'm representing the business. And I try to keep that in mind, which I appreciate.
Right.
So sometimes my mind automatically goes to business owners, but it's not just business owners listening to this, right? So really thinking about how you are representing that brand, that company that you're working for.
Yes. Especially if you're driving a company vehicle. Definitely something to keep in mind, people.
Great public service announcement.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So what if someone's listening to this and says, I think it's now very evident that I need to get in alignment again. I need a rebrand, whether it is they're the business owner and they need a shift, or they're realizing they're not in alignment with the place they're working. What are some things people should be thinking about?
Right. Well, it kind of depends. If it's somebody that's the business owner or decision maker, and that what they have out there isn't quite what it needs to be, that is absolutely right up our alley in terms of, let's sit down, look at this, look at what's fallen short, and, do a refresh. Sometimes it can be minimal tweaks. Sometimes it's just what they have in place might be great, but nobody knows about it. And when your competition is out there spending the money and showing up and you're not, you could be amazing. Yeah. But people have to know about you, and you just can't assume. It's gone are the days of location being, all there is. So it makes it challenging. And as far as somebody personally who finds that they're not in alignment, obviously talking to anybody who can help with that and seeing if that's a worthwhile conversation. And then you have to make decisions about, life's too short to not be happy. And you got to kind of look inward a little bit too, because there are definitely times when that person might have expectations that are not realistic, or asking too much of a situation or whatnot. And sometimes that's a person who needs to adjust and change as opposed to leave a situation. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Well, I'm curious if you have like a really cool success story of seeing, marketing, branding that worked really well for someone. What does it look like when it's working well from your side of the table? What are the things you start to see for that business?
I mean, for me, one of the best things is when I get emails from clients. Like I got one the other day from a very long time client who owns a furniture boutique, interior design firm, higher end in Loudon, and she said, I don't know what you guys did with the last campaign, but oh my gosh, it's been amazing. And went on to say some further things, and that's music to my ears. And so when we hear things like that unsolicited, that is a fabulous response. When I have clients who start one of a success story that I love is someone that opened a new medical practice, and just really from start, and in the Ashburn area, which is very competitive, and went from literally 0 patients to now she just bought her own office space, like her own condo in Fairfax, and just was like, you guys have grown me. You've taken me from, and she's been very receptive to our suggestions. She's amazing as well, and that helps because she then retains patients and so forth.
Yeah.
So, one of our flooring clients, they're swamped. They're absolutely swamped. They were saying how much their business has increased. So that's the bottom line is really the key. Yeah. I mean, they can have all the clicks to their website in the world, all the phone calls, but what are they making, and what are we bringing to them, I should say, because that's our job, is to deliver.
They have to convert it.
They've got to do the rest of the job, but we need to convert ideal clients to them.
Yeah.
And they're not going to all be ideal, but
but you want them to get to the point where they're so busy that they only take on the ideal.
Right.
And we talked about that earlier, when you get to the point where you can actually say no to clients that don't align with you.
Right.
And what you're looking for.
I've gotten much better at that, because I feel like we can help almost anybody that comes to us, but some people really just are not the right fit for us, or not in the right place with their thinking. And so we've developed kind of some core guidelines for the clients that we want to take on, having been in business as long as we have, kind of have that luxury, if you will. And so, just defining, and every business needs to define who they are. Like, if you're in retail, are you price driven? Are you quality driven? Somehow most of our clients end up being kind of a higher end, tend to go for a same type of client. And it's not like we've actively looked for those business. It's just when we look at the similarities in some of our clients, it seems to be that's
who you're drawing in. Yeah. That's awesome. All right. So we have to do Leadership Unscripted, and I wanted to do it now, maybe even sooner than I normally would, because when we were talking about kind of that inward reflection and who you are, it made me think a little bit about today's submission. So I'm going to give this to you so you can read along with me in case you need it. So for those that haven't listened to an episode before, this segment is where we take a submission from a listener that might be facing some sort of leadership challenge, and we just unpack it together. With my guest, we're going to give you some feedback on what might we do if we found ourselves in this situation. In no way are we talking about being experts in this area. It's just what you've submitted, and I thought, now that we're talking about it, it is kind of in alignment with today's topic. So it says, I've hit several milestones in my career and received great feedback from both peers and clients, but I still struggle with imposter syndrome. Even after tangible success, I sometimes feel like I just got lucky, or that I'll be found out eventually. It's frustrating because I want to enjoy what I've earned without second guessing myself all the time. How do I move past this and truly own my accomplishments? We're going to give this person a random name because it's anonymous. You get to pick the name. Who are we talking to here?
Kathy.
All right, Kathy.
I don't know where that came from.
It's always fun to see what comes out. I think recently someone said joy, and that person radiates joy. So, okay, so let's talk about this. What are your immediate thoughts? Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome?
Well, it's funny because recently I was saying I have a business and life coach, and I was telling her that, I love my life. I am very blessed and so grateful. And, but sometimes I'll be playing with my 1-year-old grandson or out on the golf course or just all the things I enjoy. And I'm like, wow, how do I get to do this? How do I get to do this? And I don't feel, it's not a deserving thing. It's not a confidence thing. It's just this little back of my brain thing. And so this kind of resonated with me in that regard.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I mentioned Jessica Gordon to you earlier. She was talking about imposter syndrome and that term a little bit in an episode before with me. And she was talking about how she's always waiting for like the shoe to drop because everything's too perfect right now. And that's a tough place to be in too.
Right. Yes.
Because you want to live it up, but you look around and other people might not be living the same way.
Right. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts? Kathy asked, how do I move past this and truly own my accomplishments? What would you do?
I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind when I read this is, why not you? Why not you? Mm-hmm. I mean, you've done all the hard work. You've put in all the time. So why not you? And why would you want this negativity to take up space in real estate in your brain, in your mindset?
Yeah.
And so I think we have to be diligent in pushing that away and thinking about, who do you see yourself as? Who in this case is, let's say it's a woman, the woman you want to be. Kathy's a woman, since we've named her that.
Thank you for clarifying.
Who do you want to be? And when you wake up, what are you doing today? What are you putting on today? Like your persona, if you will. So I think just embracing it and enjoying it, mindset is so crucial. And you don't want to spend the time you do have to enjoy all this great stuff by diminishing it with these thoughts. So it's takes some work. It's not necessarily easy to do that. And it's also, again, social media, for the benefits it does have in business, it is part of the reason for some of these things, because I don't know what our industry or career is, but you might see other people who seem to have it together more than you do, or you think they do,
or
they're putting it out there more. Let them do them and you do you, and not let that cloud your thinking. So
no, I think that's great feedback. I was thinking about how often I actually hear this term now, and I think I've said before, I think it's always existed. Now we just have a term to describe it, so everybody's talking about it.
Right.
But to me, it's going to happen more as you grow, because you're constantly what's within your comfort zone is always changing.
Right.
So to me, it's showing that you're stretching yourself.
Right.
And that's where I want to be. I find the thing that I know I can't do well.
Right.
And that's where that's why I'm on a podcast.
Right.
And I plop myself in the seat and push myself. So for a period of time, I'm like, well, I don't deserve to have a podcast. I said to you, I'm like, you've been on the radio. I'm not going to be good at this. You're going to be better than me. So to me, I think it's a good sign that you're stretching, but also, how often does someone compliment you and you just kind of dismiss the compliment? I find myself doing this all the time, where they'll compliment on something. Like, you said it to me. You said something about me inspiring you. And I don't. And
your answer back was, what? It was an email, but that was your answer back.
Yes, because my immediate reaction was like, well, why would I do that?
Right.
Like, I could say that about you, but why? So instead, like, shifting that and saying thank you,
right,
might be more appropriate. But I feel like it happens all the time. It's really easy to question even other people's observations of you. They're complimenting you, and you like push it away.
Yeah.
Something that I do, this may be a little dorky, but that email that you got from a client that made you feel
Right,
really
right.
good. I house all of those in one place. So if I'm feeling like really down,
Right.
or questioning my ability, sometimes I'll go into
Right.
that category and I'll read them.
Right.
And to me, it's almost like the evidence that I do belong.
Right. Oh, yeah, I get it. Because sometimes I'll look at analytics and reports for a client, or working on something that's a new pitch for a client. And it'll be funny because I'll text or even call Mike or something, and I'm like, we're really good at what we do. Like, we really are good at what we do. And it's just that, awareness of that. The other thing that comes to mind with her is defining what you do and what you want to do. And because I think one of the things that comes into play for me is where I feel like, oh, I should be doing that. Like, I should be doing a newsletter, or I should be doing
you said that
this,
earlier.
or I should be. And it's like, okay, you can be if you want, but that doesn't make you less than. And being focused and solution oriented on something, and not being all things to all people, because no one can be.
That's a good point.
I think that is also helpful when it comes to this, so that you have focus, and you get to choose. You get to choose how you see yourself, how you frame your day. You get to choose if you're going to go play golf versus, sit at your computer. I mean, I guess it depends on if you have a boss that's telling you got to be at your computer. But, yeah.
Yeah,
So.
no, I think that's really helpful feedback. I think the last thing that I would say is, it's kind of like when someone says I'm a perfectionist and I'm like, thank you. I actually say thank you for that, because it means I have high standards and I'm proud of those high standards. I think that someone that feels this way, it shows that they care.
Right. Right.
They really do care about being their best and putting their best foot forward.
Right.
So I feel like even a mindset shift around, maybe we just need a different term, because imposter, it just sounds so negative to say it.
Well, I think some of it is, okay, I'm going to totally date myself, but when I was growing up, there was no internet. I mean, there wasn't any of that. I didn't say I want to be, a digital marketing specialist when I grow up. So it has evolved over such a path, and sometimes I'm like, wow, how did I even get here? And I've, enjoy a very nice, successful business. And so I think sometimes that's where it comes in too, but just being open to those opportunities and where life leads you sometimes is way better than what you might have planned for yourself.
So true. I've experienced that too. Well, we hope that that's helpful, Kathy.
Yes.
So next segment, leadership in the wild. So I asked you to kind of think about someone you've noticed leading well. It can be someone you know. It could be someone you've never met before, but who is someone that stands out to you as a really effective leader, and why?
I think you do a pretty darn good job in that realm, first of all, I have to say.
Well, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. But my answer for this will probably surprise you. It's very kind of out of the box.
Okay.
But this actually came up in one of my mastermind things a little bit ago. But Jelly Roll.
Okay.
I think Jelly Roll is amazing. I mean, he is, like, when you look at his brand, when you look at what the traditional country music singer looks like, or even pop, like, he doesn't fit. He's not a rapper. He doesn't fit that. And just, he is so, or even Christian music, because he's, kind of crossing over into that. But I just think the way he has put himself out there, his flaws, his story, his compassion for other people, I just find him to be a pretty darn amazing leader, and I think he's probably made a really huge difference in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I could say that from his marketing, which you talk about real and authentic. So anyway, yes, that is my very kind of weird out of the box answer. That is not weird.
I love that, and I can see why you chose that.
Yeah.
I do love those celebrities that are real and raw and share their story.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with you on Jelly Roll. Yeah. Nobody's ever picked anyone like that. So
well, and you never know what you're going to get from him. He surprises you, and that's one of the things in marketing too, that you got to be careful what you do, but to surprise people in various ways with things you might do. And I'm not talking. Very few of our clients are price driven, so I'm not talking about some kind of a sale or an offer, but yeah.
I like it. All right. So I always have trouble figuring out mine. Well, and I have to come up with one a week because I record one a week, but so many choices. I was thinking about, so because of the summit coming up, I've been doing a lot of calls about sponsorships.
Right.
And I was connecting with the CEO of a bank by the name of Bill Kick. And when I connected with him, we had just such a great call. He shared so much about the way in which he leads. I'm just so impressed. But what stood out was he shared that our summit, because of the territory in which their bank currently serves, is not the best fit for him because it's not the region in which he's serving. He actually recommended 2 other banks and did the email intro to the CEOs of other banks to promote other banks rather than his own.
Right.
And that really stood out to me.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Because we talk about collaboration, right? And we're trying to make this a regional initiative, and for someone to help promote someone in the same industry, that was amazing.
Yes.
So I'm shouting out Bill Kick
Absolutely.
because I think that says a lot about his leadership style.
Right. Yes.
And
definitely.
ultimately, it ended up, we got our lunch sponsor out of the intro that
cool.
he made. So.
Well, that makes me think of somebody I knew from networking years ago, Giver's Gain.
Yeah.
Giver's Gain. And so it's about all of that good stuff.
It's so true. All right. So we want to touch on our branching out challenge, which is, what do you want to challenge listeners to do based on what they've heard today? So what's that challenge?
So my challenge is take a step back, breathe for a minute, and think for a minute. So this is challenging to do, but it's one of the things that we bring to a business when we start working with them. Pretend you don't know anything about your own business. It can be about yourself as well, but let's look at it from a business perspective. Pretend you don't know anything about your business and you saw whatever it is you put out there, whether it's your social media or your website. What would you think? What would you think that business did? What would you think who it's for? All of that. And it is hard to do, but when you can step back and look at it through others' eyes, because many businesses, they're too close to it, and what they assume people already know. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a website and I look at it and I'm like, what do they actually do? How do you even say their name? Things like that. The business name, because people sometimes try to get so creative that they completely lose their audience. And, if you have to spell the name of your business, if you have to pronounce it continually, define it, it is probably not the best use of that valuable asset of your brand. So that would be my thing, is to try to take a step back, try to look at yourself through others' eyes. And that's usually my approach when I'm talking to a client, whether they're just starting out or whether they've been around for a long time.
I love that challenge, and I'm going to pull it back in on the personal side too. There's no reason why someone can't do it personally and say, what would other people say about me?
Right.
Ask some people, right? I have a group of friends. We call ourselves the Wolf Pack. It's all guys, of course, hanging out with the guys. And I asked them one day, to be critical of me and tell me, what do you think is my biggest blind spot? And of course it was hard to hear it, but it was so helpful to have people close to me that were comfortable sharing, these are some things you really got to work on, Sierra. So ask people what they see in you and their perception of you. Because I was thinking about what you said earlier about everywhere you go, you're leading, right? Your grocery store example. How does that interaction leave someone?
Right.
This is such a ridiculous example, so forgive me. But yesterday, I went out to dinner with Matthew, and I realized that I've always done this thing. If I'm passing a stranger, if they don't full on smile at me, if they full on smile, I smile back and say hi or whatever, right? But if I'm passing a stranger on the sidewalk or something and I can't get anything out of them, I will do this kind of side smile thing. And I can't do it right now because I'm actually smiling. I will do the side smile because it's my attempt at showing I'm happy to see you kind of thing, but I don't want to be overly obnoxious. Well, I did it yesterday and Matt saw it for the first time and he was like, what was that? And I was like, well, that's my side smile. I do that when I pass people on the sidewalk. And he was like, that doesn't do what you think it does. He was like, you have to stop doing that. So he's been doing it back to me since yesterday.
That's funny.
And now that I see him doing it, I'm like, oh, I wonder what people have been thinking every
That's
time I do
funny.
that. So it's even this silly stuff
Right.
like body language.
Right,
What is your
right.
body language saying to
Yes.
the people around you when
Right.
you're out networking? Do you have open body language
Oh, yeah.
and you're open, or
You
are
know
you
how
closed
hard it is
off?
for me to sit like this? I'm usually like, yeah.
You haven't even hit the mic yet. I'm impressed. I've been hitting the mic. But it's such a silly example, but it brought awareness to how others perceive me.
Right. And in business and in person, you have to be open to hearing it and, digesting it. I mean, you have to look at it. There are also negatives that people will say that aren't true. So you
Yeah.
also can't the negatives are like Velcro. Things that
Yeah.
are negative tend to really stick. And the things that are positive, it's like Teflon, and they tend to slide off of you. And it really should be the opposite.
That's
So
true.
you have to, I get completely what you're saying, but you also have to be careful because sometimes people don't have wholesome intentions.
That is true.
Or yourself, you're probably, when I was at the radio station, my manager then, he used to say, I never have to say a word to you because you'll beat yourself up more than anything else. I can't think of many times that was necessary, but no, I'm my own worst critic. And
Yeah, of
so
course.
we have to talk nice to ourselves too.
Yeah,
So
that
yeah.
does make a big difference. All right, I want people to be able to find you. So where can people learn more about MarketSpark and find you online?
Well, our website is marketspark.com. However, it is MarketSpark with no vowels. MarketSpark, MarketSpark. The other was already taken. It's some technology company.
Did you just have to spell it?
Yes, I did. But not my name, my business name, just my domain. Yeah.
I like it though, without vowels. That's
Yeah.
an easy way to do
Yeah.
it.
If
MarketSpark
you
without
Google
vowels.
MarketSpark Digital
It'll pop.
Leesburg, we will pop up too because we have an office in Leesburg, Virginia. So that's the easiest way. We're on social media, all of
Yeah.
that good stuff. So
All right. Well, is there anything you wanted to share today that you didn't get the opportunity to?
nothing major that comes to mind, but when I get in my car, I'll be like, oh, I should have said all of these things.
I do the
So-
same thing. I wake up in the middle of the night and I realize what I should have said.
No, the main thing is there are just so many possibilities and opportunities. I will say one of the biggest challenges with our industry, marketing, is for people to try to know who to trust because there's so many options out there. And I know people are well-meaning, but not everyone is equipped, and it's expensive. And we have a lot of people who've come to us after having made expensive decisions that didn't go right, and they're like, "How do I know?" And we work with them to help with that. But so that is one of the challenges. So just doing your due diligence before, because there are a lot of online options that seem like cheaper and all of that.
Well, and you want to be able to connect with an actual human and build a relationship and screen them before you start working with them. So I hope that people aren't just doing a quick Google search. And
Well,
choosing.
it's amazing how many people are doing that. And again, that is one of the biggest things that we offer is that I am available. I am the point person. You have me that handles everything. And then I make sure it all gets done with our team. And it definitely has worked well. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate it,
Absolutely.
and for joining me for lunch. I've enjoyed our
Thank
time
you for
together.
lunch.
Oh,
we
of
fought
course.
over it, but she won. So
Well, you were on top of it first. I was just more aggressive.
I caved. Unusual for me, but
Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to let you get to golf.
Yes, that's next on the list. Yes.
You've got a busy list today. Well, it's Friday. It's always a big deal when somebody gives me their time on a Friday. So
Well, I appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun, and I
Good.
really appreciate. I can't wait to share this with everyone out there.
Yeah. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the episode. I hope that you found value and that it allowed you some time to really reflect on how you may be perceived by others and what that brand really is. If you want to take a step back and breathe and consider and reflect more, we'd love to hear from you, actually. We'd love to hear what your reflections are. You can send us an email at info@branchingoutpodcast.com and share with us any reflections you had through that process, or connect with Tammy so she can help you actually take action after you've reflected. As always, episodes drop on Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time, so be sure to subscribe so you're getting those notifications and you don't have to go out looking for it yourself. If you want to submit a leadership challenge or scenario, something you might be experiencing like Kathy today, you can go ahead and send us an email also at info@branchingoutpodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. We love ideas for episodes or guests. So be sure to check us out on social media as well and engage in those posts so we know what you're looking for and how we can best serve our listeners as well. So I look forward to talking to everybody again soon next Friday at noon. And until next time, keep branching out.